London-based Lawrence Booth is one of the funniest writers writing on cricket, if not the funniest.
He's been a cricket journalist with The Guardian and is famous for his cricket emails for The Spin. He has also written 3 books and edited one and is currently editing the Wisden Almanac.
But my favorite book of his is Arm Ball to Zooter,
a book that explains cricketing terms to the new fan while entertaining the ones that are already familiar with them.
And this is the book we talk about in this episode. The thing is, he does not look very funny. And when we asked him about that, this is how he reacted.
It must be the shock from last night's game. This is the morning after the night before when...
You looked serious before the game?
Well, that was the morning after the previous night when I was quite tired.
You looked serious before that too?
No, I hadn't seen you before that. You've only seen me on 2 mornings. And
as per your pictures, you look serious. I mean, in your photographs, you look serious.
Well, you've got to maintain a certain gravitas, at least try and convince people that you do have some. So that's probably the reason. I'd studied languages at university, and unlike most of my colleagues at the time, I didn't then decide to go and work in the city or become a lawyer or any of the tedious jobs that a lot of graduates go into. So I went for work experience at a cricket magazine, Wisden Cricket Monthly as it was then, and that was the summer of '98, and I hung around for long enough for them to finally give me a job, and I went freelance in 2002. And worked for The Guardian for many years. A couple of years ago I made the very natural move in English newspaper circles from the left wing of The Guardian to the extreme right wing of the Daily Mail, and that's where I am now. And it's all worked out reasonably well. People can see here we live in the lap of the opposite of luxury, so it's a hard life at times. As a freelancer, you try and divide your time to make life interesting. You don't just want to do newspapers, you don't just want to do magazines. You want to kind of spread your wings a bit, because the danger of being a newspaper writer sometimes, especially on the news beat, which I do a lot of, is that you're hamstrung by house style and the various conventions of the news form. So writing a book, if you get the opportunity, is a great privilege. Slightly sort of obsessive compulsive. I cut out all my newspaper pieces actually and have them in a scrapbook. But I don't really go back to them very often. No, it's not a joke. No, probably admitted something here that will be held against me on Twitter. I did a sort of coffee table book in 2005. That was called Cricket, Celebrating the Modern Game Around the World. It's a very, very pithy title. I did a book called Cricket, Lovely Cricket, and that was I did a column for The Guardian called The Spin, and the publisher wanted me to do kind of the spin in book form. He said, just go and riff on cricket. And then I got the chance to edit a book of cricket quotations, and that was kind of right up my street as well. I did Arm Ball to Zooter, this one, which is a sort of light-hearted A to Z. I kind of felt that, actually I was approached, and the publisher said, could I do a history of cricket phrases? Okay. And she said, you know, silly mid-off must have a great history behind it. I said, well, it's kind of the bloke who fields at mid-off but so close that it's silly, it's not really much history. So, but what I would like to do is an A to Z of terminology, and I can do a bit of history, a few lame jokes, and hopefully entertain people who know about cricketing and inform people who don't. So it's a kind of trying to hit both ends of the spectrum. I think a lot of cricket writing can be a bit po-faced. I thought it was a great chance to do something a bit different.
Is cricket your only area of interest when it comes to writing?
It's my main area probably, and it's become how I earn my living. I mean, a few years ago I worked a bit for the features desk at The Guardian, a little section called G2, where I'd go in once a week and they'd ask me to to write about how much men pay for haircuts, or is the avocado the most dangerous fruit in Britain. That's after I almost sliced my finger off. The history of headbutts was another piece I did after a jockey headbutted his horse, and that was a summer when Zidane headbutted Materazzi in the World Cup final, so 2 incidents became a trend. That's the rule in journalism. These books never sell brilliantly, they're kind of stocking fillers at Christmas. I think people have enjoyed it, the feedback I've got. It's just whether the publishers think it's worth expending X amount. You walk into W.H. Smith's, for example, and the books that are selling are the ghosted autobiographies of sports stars. They're kind of, say, trashy literature, simple, fun stories that attract the people who aren't great sports fans but have heard about Paul Gascoigne or Dickie Bird or Ian Botham, and it's a nice gentle read. This is the more esoteric end of the market. Yeah, it's probably this or Cricket Lovely Cricket. I mean, this is good fun. Well, does it sound arrogant to say it's quite nice to reread it occasionally or dip
Not at
into
all.
it? I don't know, sometimes you look back and think, wow, I probably wrote better then than I do now, so it can be a bit depressing, but no, this is great fun. This was just an indulgence. I mean, this was a chance to put down all the thoughts and stuff I'd ever read about cricket and kind of indulge an obsession, really. A lot of it was sort of swimming around in my head somewhere. It was like when you learn a language when you're about 10, and then if you have a foreign mother, I have a Swiss mum, for example, and then 15 years later you go back to the country and it somehow comes out. And the internet makes things very easy, doesn't it? You know, Cricinfo is a sort of, it's the encyclopedia for cricket, really, and you have hunches about cricket, and Cricinfo kind of confirms or rubbishes them. I've got a fairly extensive cricket library, much to the chagrin of my girlfriend back home in our living room. So there's always plenty of reference material, books that you've either never opened or dip into occasionally suddenly became sort of treasure troves of interesting little snippets. Writing the first entry to the last in between all my other work, it was probably around 8 months, something like that. It didn't allow me to retire early on the proceeds. It was a handy little sort of top up to my daily salary, and I don't think I've ever earned a penny of royalties from it. I think my agent is still waiting for him to get a slice of the proceedings. I'd say it's very difficult. I mean, a couple of people might have done it. I mean, even Gideon Haigh,
Sure.
the best guy in the business at the moment. I don't know that he's he has a very nice house in Melbourne, but it's not a palace or a mansion. I mean, it's just, these are things that people do for the love of the game, really. I mean, it's kind of instant humiliation on Twitter, isn't it? It's a new brand of journalism, and there are people waiting to trip you up. I've discovered a new tactic, which is I simply block the people who insult me. So I probably surround myself with sycophants, which isn't probably good for my soul. I'm not aware of being wittingly funny too often, but being unwittingly funny is part of the thrills. Where I kind of honed my style probably was in my website column for The Guardian, The Spin, which I wrote for 7 years. I kind of had a license, really, to play a few shots, to be a bit light-hearted. It was branded as a kind of sideways take on the game. That brand of writing has grown as the internet's developed, and blogs have really opened it up for everyone to have their piece. Good writing is chatty. It's not writing that jars. It shouldn't be writing that you wouldn't speak. Sports journalism can be very blinkered, and I think the best sports journalism places sport within the context of other social
a larger narrative
phenomena. Exactly. Matthew Engel was the editor-in-chief of Wisden Cricket Monthly. He had a back page column in the magazine. Someone like Matthew, or even Marcus Berkman, who's written Rain Men, they create this illusion of effortlessness. Gideon Haigh is just the master of the original take on cricket.